Sorry about that. I almost just called 911 on accident, so that would not have been a good start to Whiteboard Wednesday. And I'm going to get started in like 3 seconds. I'm trying to get this thing on my post so it's sticking up and you guys can actually see the whiteboard really well. So give me just a second. I swear every time in the very, very beginning, this like stand is always jacked up. So it's really hard to like get it to stand without messing this up. But we have a really good session tonight, guys. We are talking about child investing. So let me get this thing set up like there. Okay. All right. So it looks like it's pretty good. It's the best I can do for now. And let's see if I can make it a little more straight. All right. Boom. All right, guys, let's get started. So you guys can drop questions in the boxes below, the comment box or whatever. But I want to talk about child investing. We don't talk about child investing enough. We often talk about our investing, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds listening and stuff like that. But tonight we're going to talk about child investing for your kids. So if you don't have kids, you still want to stay tuned because you might have kids in the future, and you can use this lesson tonight, right now, even if you don't have kids. So I highly recommend you guys to stay and watch even if you don't have children. So what are our options when it comes to kids? I often get the question, hey man, I want to invest in for my kid, what do I do? 529 always comes to mind, right? That's the first item that most people come to. So before we even think about this right here, let's take a step back and let's assess this right here, okay? So when it comes to investing for anything, you always want to begin with your goals. You always want to know what you're trying to accomplish because you can't pick these up here without knowing your goals. Am I trying to save for my kids' college? Yes or no? Am I trying to save for a kid's down payment on a home or a car? Yes or no? Etc. Right? So we have to know what the purpose is, what our goals are, which eventually is obviously the purpose, and then we need to go to the account itself. So once we know the goals and the purpose, we know which account to select. But most people start right here and they try to work backwards, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. So if you ever meet with a financial advisor or financial planner of any sort, they're always going to start here. They're going to say, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? Because we can't get to an answer without knowing that. So that's very important. This is step one. Let's use some examples, okay? So let's just say your goals are to save most people's goals, I'd say, is to save for your kids' education, and then also on top of that, probably save for maybe like a starter fund, for example. Like, I don't think a lot of us had starter funds, but I think a lot of parents are trying to accomplish that nowadays. I certainly didn't. I'm sure most of you guys didn't have a starter fund at some point in time. But that's one of the main things that people are trying to accomplish. So there's different avenues to go through when it comes to investing for your kids with that in mind. So maybe our goal is to start with education. So if we're trying to go educational route, we always want to stay right here, the 529 and ESA. These two options are your best options when it comes to investing for education in particular. So a lot of people don't know that the 529 can actually be used for K through 12. Now, when I'm investing in a 529, I'm not doing K through 12 with that in mind. I'm going to probably cash flow K through 12, and then 529 is going to be coming into play with college. But some people do the 529 for K through 12. Or one common thing, we'll talk about that over there with flexibility in a second. But in general, 529 for college. So I know right off the bat, hey, my kid's going to go to college. I really, really want to help them with college. The 529 is on my map without question. Now, I have a few other options here, right? And so when I'm looking at these, I see an UTMA or UGMA. So what is this, okay? So an UTMA or UGMA in particular is a Uniform Transfer to Minors Act or a Uniform Gift to Minors Act, okay? And what this does, one of these, I think it's the UTMA, is just securities, right? Just like index funds and stocks. The UTMA is if you want to get like fine art, patents, royalties, securities, obviously, too. It's just like a more upgraded version. But you have both options. What this isn't necessarily always an investment account. And I think people are actually confused by that. I personally have an UTMA for Logan, unintentionally. It's not set up to invest in. It's a bank account. So if you have a custodial asset in a minor's name, that's by default an UGMA. And so when we opened a bank account because we fund her Roth IRA, we have to pay her. And so when we pay her money, that money is her money. It's no longer my money. It's no longer dad and mom's money. And so if we decide to take that out, that's illegal. And so that's why I don't like this account at all. Because the UGMA and UGMA, obviously we use it when we pay it. It's directly with the intention of going to the Roth IRA. But a lot of times the UGMA and UGMA is like a dungeon hole, or it's a cell holder for your money to your kids. And this becomes a major issue for a lot of families, because when you're 4 years old, when your kid's 4 years old, obviously they're going to do everything you think they're going to do. But life happens, kids get older, they go their own route, and sometimes they go a route you don't approve of. But if you have money in this UGMA or UGMA, let's say you have $30,000, you have zero control. And if they decide to do heroin, if they decided to go buy a Lamborghini, it does not matter. You have zero control. Most states are 18 or 21. There are a few states, I believe, that are 25 years old when the minor gets that money. So at 18 years old, let's say, you've saved up a bunch of money in this UGMA and UGMA. This is used for anything. So this is not education. This can be used for anything, but it's also in the minor's name, right? So at 18 years old, you have a $30,000 account that is delivered to your 18-year-old. They have no idea what to do with it, and they go blow it. That's the reality of a lot of times. Now, of course, a lot of parents have great kids, and they turn out great, and they're educated, and this turns out fantastic. But I will get to another option that pretty much makes this irrelevant. It does not make sense to roll with this. So the third option, before we get to the alternative option, is the Roth IRA. The Roth IRA is just like you guys think about it, but it's just in your child's name. The only requirement is earned income. So you need earned income. So you might ask, hey, how do I get earned income? Well, you have to have a job. So a kid that is 3 months old is likely not going to make any earned income. They're not going to be on, even if you own your own business, it's really hard. Now, the way we beat this loophole is through my business, right? So you guys know Logan a little bit. We did that that blog today about her. For anybody that's new here, but she's only 1 year old. She turned 1 this past week. So for the last 12 months, she's become a budget dog baby model in a sense, right? She's either modeling or part of the brand of some sort, and we pay her for earned income for the little bit that she does. And when I say the little bit that we do, it's not a lot of money. We're saying, I think she made $600 in 2021. She was born in September, so pretty good revenue stream for a 4-month-old at that point in time. So she made $600 in 2021. I think in 2022 so far, she's made maybe $400 or $500 max. So we're not talking a ton of money. So for somebody that's really young, it's hard to make a lot of money. But at least you can get that retirement account started. So what we do, back up to the UGMA, when she is paid, so my business, right? My business is right here. My biz, and I pay her every, let's say, whenever, as needed basis. And that goes directly to her UGMA, which is just a high yield savings account. It's nothing. We don't use it outside of that. And then that goes straight to the IRA. So now she has an IRA with money sitting there for retirement, and she's literally less than 1 year old at the point in time. So she has money growing in this IRA because she has earned income. Now, when you become 16, you get a job at the pool or whatever, or you're a landscaper, you work at a restaurant, your kids need to be putting your money in this. This account is where they need to be putting their money. Unless, obviously, they're saving for other things like a car or college, or they're paying for other things. If your kids, if you're well off and you're in a good position and you're trying to help your kids out, make them put that money in the Roth IRA. Here's a little hack as well. So if you have a Roth IRA and the kid makes $500, if they decide to put $250 into the IRA, you can match them $250 of your personal money. That is a loophole within the IRA, but you cannot just put money in there without their contribution. You have to match their contribution. It has to be up to their earned income. They can't decide to just it's not loosey-goosey. It has to be exact, right? So that's a major hack for the IRA, especially for kids, especially for teens, incentivizing and things of that nature. So I would highly recommend, if you have children, they're of working age, 16, 15, 16, 17, use this account for them in particular. They can directly contribute to that. You and mom and dad can decide what they want to do. Number 4, guys, this is the alternative to the UTMA and UGMA. This is the best account in my opinion. So this has the most flexibility. What this is a brokerage. I call it the parent taxable brokerage. I literally made that term up. It's really a taxable brokerage in the parent's name. Okay, so when I say parent taxable brokerage, it's like Budget Dog taxable brokerage for Logan, right? And so what we do, we've opened a separate brokerage account. This is not in our regular, typical brokerage account, and we use this for her. So this is the same thing as an UTMA or an UGMA. Here's where it comes into play. We control this money. And so from a tax perspective, you get taxed on the first $1,100 up on this account in cap gains to the kiddie tax rate. And then the next $1,100 or so is taxed at the regular, I forget exactly, the regular tax rate or whatever. And then additionally on top of that, it's the parent tax rate, right? So it's going to be really low taxes, but the thing is, we ran a comparison on Twitter before, and we've actually done an actual analysis of this account versus this account from a tax perspective, because that's why this is incentivizing, is because the kiddie tax rate up to $1,100, then the regular tax rate, then parent rate after that. But it really didn't make sense when the taxes of this one with new tax law as of 2018, 2019 time, is this one really worked out to be about the same, but the problem with this one is you don't have control. So let's say the math breaks even, right? It actually, this one came out a little more favorable, but let's just say it broke even. What's the benefit of having this one when you can have this one? Because you retain control, and what you do is gift that to the kid in the future, okay? And the gift tax is $16,000 per. It's $16,000 per spouse, and then per gift, right? So let's say you're married filing jointly. You can do this times two, $32,000 per year in gift money towards your kids. So most kids aren't going to need more than $32,000 a year. Tax free. That's the benefit of this. So let's say you saved up $100,000 over an 18-year window. You can do this 3 years in a row, technically 4, right? 3 and a quarter or whatever. And you could just gift that to them for free over a 3-4 year window. It's probably better for the kid anyway if you kind of divvy it up versus saying, hey, this is all coming right here and now. So you can save this up. You can also, hey, you know what? Mom and dad got in a little bit of trouble. There was an emergency that needed to be funded. This account's yours. You keep that in your name. If you have it in here and you take that away, there's major, you can't do that. It's illegal. So you absolutely have the most flexibility with this. You can use it for your personal self if things get rough or you just need it or whatever. But you also can gift it to your kids in the future. So it's pretty much an all-around fantastic account. Typical capital gains that you're going to be paying. If you're getting dividends, the capital appreciation technically if you sold type deal. So parent taxable brokerage is phenomenal, guys. As you can see, the blue stars are what we've done personally for Logan. So we've done a 529, we've done a Roth IRA, and we've done a parent taxable brokerage. She's only 1 year old. I want to say collectively each one what we put in, what she's technically earned, and any appreciation or dividends that she's received, we're hovering at $13,000 as a 1 year old. So I don't know if you guys were 1 year old with $13,000. I know I wasn't. I was with $0, maybe negative. But it's pretty good setup, right? And so if we do this consistently for the next 18 years, she's going to be obviously well off because she's going to have a great starter fund. She's going to have a retirement set up ready to go, and she's going to have all of her education likely paid for as well. The last one, guys, is a rental property. So this is kind of an alternative way to do this for your kids. So I'm not doing this, but one way, and I know my friends, the FI couple, have talked to me about doing this. It's a pretty interesting way. I kind of like it. But let's say you get a rental property and you get, let's say your kid's 0 years old and you get a 20-year property loan on this, right? So not a 30-year property, but a 20-year property. At the end of those 20 years, your kid's just about out of school. You can give them that rental property. So you've let a tenant that you've rented out, that's rented from you, pay down your mortgage over 20 years. You may or may not cash flow during that time. There's some appreciation, obviously, and depreciation that you're writing off. There's benefits from that perspective because it's a rental property. And then at the age of 20, it becomes theirs, or 22, or whatever you want to do. That's an alternative route a lot of people do because they don't theoretically have to do as much saving for your kids. Now, it is a hard asset and there's rules around that. So it's different. There's different treatment than these top four. But if rentals are up your alley, this is an awesome alternative to the standard typical investment strategy that most parents would use. A few other things, guys. There's a lot of things to go over. So the benefit of the 529, right, is the state tax deduction. So when you put money in, that is a state tax deduction, except for these 5 in particular states. And you know what? One of those are mine, Kentucky. So I know I say Cincinnati, it's a suburb of Cincinnati, but I'm technically northern Kentucky, right? So California, Hawaii, Kentucky, Maine, and North Carolina do not have the state tax deduction. So if you're one of those 5 states, you don't get the benefit of the state tax deduction. You still get the benefit of the 529. So that's one piece of the benefit. So don't let that scare you away and say, oh, what doesn't make sense to save for 529 because I don't get the state tax deduction. It will make sense to go figure out which state has the best 529 for your kids. So when you're looking at the state, typically you go to the state that you're in, right? If you're in New York or Ohio, you go to New York or Ohio and you Google New York 529 plan, and they'll have their specific plan. New York and Ohio are 2 top 5 in the nation rated wise. Consistently always in the top 5. So those are good ones to mess with. I personally, like I said, don't get this benefit, so there's no benefit of me working with Kentucky. I could work with Kentucky, it wouldn't hurt me, but you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Vanguard, which is the state of Nevada, and I'll just use theirs because their investment options are great and I know their fees are low. Not every state has a great 529 plan. Most of them are age-based funds, so it's going to say, hey, when your kid's 10 years old, it's kind of like a target date fund. It's going to shift the allocations for you and stuff like that. I opt for my own allocation, so I select individually, and so I just go into the 529 and do it myself. And I have very simple low-cost index funds through Vanguard, what I use. So that's what I do for the 529, but that's an option. Now, the difference between ESA and 529 is the contribution limit, and so a lot of people don't use this because it's limited to $2,000, I think, last time I checked. The 529 basically has no limit, so I would stick with the 529 versus the ESA. But some people use the educational savings account as well as another alternative. UGMA depends what you're trying to put in, obviously, between the two. Now, the two differences between these two things is over here. So if you see I have state-to-state flexibility, obviously, so rules are different amongst state-to-state is what I'm saying here. But there's a few things to note about these two accounts. So first off, if you are applying for financial aid and you're planning for financial aid up in the upcoming future, you need to be aware of this right here, 5.64 versus 20%. This account is 20% impact to your financial aid, and this account is 5.64%. So you want to be very, very hyper aware of the impact it's going to have on your future money for college. So you don't want financial aid being totally impacted with the UGMA and UGMA 20%. You'd rather take the 5.64%. Anytime the child has assets, that's not a good thing, technically speaking. So to take money out of the child's name, another reason I don't like the UGMA is this reason right here. So be very careful if you're plugging away in the UGMA and you don't know about this impact to college financial aid, because it's going to impact you pretty big. We're talking 15% differences here. So if you pull 25,000, right? 25,000 times 15% would be the difference in the tax savings lost. The other thing, guys, is most people freak out because the 529 is meant for education, and if you pull that, there's a penalty of 10%, right? So the future, if you don't use this 529 right now in law, as future kids and grandchildren you're able to pass that on. So when we did this, and this is going back to also be in the beginning of this video, I said, hey, if you are a parent or you're not a parent yet, but you're planning on having kids in the future, you can set up a 529 right now. So you could theoretically set up a 529 right now and a parent taxable brokerage, start your investing. I'm not saying if you're like 20 years old and you have zero, you're 10 years away from having kids, I don't know if I'd start this. But I'm saying if you are married, you're planning on having kids, and you're wanting to save for their college, you would start this 529 in your name right now. You would start the parent taxable brokerage in your name right now. So these two accounts could be set up today. You would put this in your name. This is what I did. So before Logan was born, I opened a 529 in my name. When she was born, she got a social security number. I transferred the 529 from myself to her. And so that 529 is now hers, but we were able to start saving before she was actually here. So the compound interest with time gave us a huge head start versus the regular parent that starts, at the 18-year ticking time bomb window. So that's a big benefit, guys, if you don't have kids but plan on it. Also the parent taxable brokerage. Now, if we don't use the 529, I'll talk about my exact allocations amongst all these accounts in a second. But if you don't use the 529 and you don't withdraw it, you can give to future kids or grandchildren. This also applies to trade school. So most parents are freaking out about, hey, my kid might not go to college. They might go to trade school. It applies there. So you're good. The other thing there's a bill supposedly in action, but it hasn't been passed at this point in time, is for unused 529 assets to be rolled over into an IRA of the parents. So that could potentially happen. I foresee this happening, and the reason being is because a lot of parents have 529 assets that are unused, and the government's trying to find ways to get people money because obviously amongst the financial collapse and everything with the dollar of how it's going and the trend, I could see them allowing more flexibility here in the future. I could be wrong. It's been in a bill, proposed in a bill at one point in time, so I don't think it's going to be far off. So I foresee that in the future. I would not freak out about funding a 529. I would not overfund a 529. I would make sure you get as much taxable benefit as you possibly can, but don't feel as if you have to go way above and beyond. And I'll talk about resources in a second as to how we figure this out. What other things do I want to talk about here? So I think we're good here. I think these all are a really good option. Now I'm going to go over this way. I'm going to shift my screen and actually I can probably just move this way a little bit. And so you guys can see this. So let me make sure I can see it on the camera and we'll get going. Okay, perfect. So over here, guys, are some resources. So I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about these things, and I also want to talk about what we do personally for Logan. So the very first thing I would use as a resource to get started tonight is the Vanguard College Cost Calculator. You can go Google this. They have a bunch of inputs, and what you do is input all the assumptions that you're going to have. Vanguard will default some assumptions for you. It's very self-explanatory. But this will be able to get you to your ultimate 529 answer for college. Another thing with this is instead of guessing on college and saying, hey, I don't really know the answers or the assumptions that they're asking me, you got to think of how much you want to fund your kid's college. That's a big assumption. So what we've done personally is said 60%. The reason we said 60% is because we don't want to overfund it. Because if she has a scholarship, if she has anything, financial aid or whatever, her cost of living or her cost of schooling is way down. We don't want to have, let's say 18 years from now, college is $150,000 for 4 years, something crazy, right? If that's the case, I don't want to have $150,000 to cover all 4 years of her school. I don't think that's really beneficial because the likelihood that she pays that full $150,000 is highly unlikely, right? So I'd rather pay maybe 60%, get a good chunk in there, but not overfund it, and then make sure she has other assets to cover the difference if she needs to. So that's what we did. We figured out from the assumptions Vanguard's college cost calculator, we came to the conclusion about 62%. So we have a funded, fully funded, assuming 8% returns, of $250 per month for the 529. And that's what we've decided, right? So $250 takes care, it's going to be about $120,000 in 18 years, assuming what we've done so far. The other asset or resource you guys can use is a compound interest calculator. So just like anything with investing, we got to kind of project the future. In short sprint windows, especially 18 years, it's really hard to assume an 8% return. It is. The market goes so up and down. Over 20, 30, 40 years, it's pretty easy to say 8%, 7% or whatever. But you might want to be a little on the safe side here. I could see you guys using 6%. I could see you using 8%. I think all of those things are pretty reasonable. Our rationale behind the 8% was I feel very well versed in, obviously, my investments is one. But secondly is our cash flow would probably cover, or we're projecting our cash flow to cover the difference. And we've set ourselves up in other accounts and other situations throughout our financial life. So if she was a little short, I think mom and dad could come to the rescue at that point in time. We might be wrong, but those are the assumptions we've used. So these two resources, guys, will be excellent for you guys in planning out what you guys are contributing to your kids. Within your account, so within 529s, UTMAs, Roth IRAs, parent taxable brokerage, or whatever, think this: index funds, ETFs, mutual funds, art, royalties, and patents. So these last three are obviously for the UTMA, but these first three are for your standard typical accounts. Do not try to get in your kid's Roth IRA and select like Amazon stock or something crazy. Just do solid, the investments we talk about quite often. The 529 is limited. You're not going to be able to pick individual stocks or like anything like that. But so the 529s target date funds and like index funds and stuff for the most part, age-based funds. Your Roth IRA, if your kid does have a Roth IRA, obviously it's theirs and you're not technically allowed to be changing that. But you have access, just like you would to your own, to change, or buy whatever. You could ape into GameStop. Don't do that. Just stick to index funds, ETFs, mutual funds, art, royalties, patents, or whatever amongst all these. Keep it simple. You're not trying to hit the lottery for the kids. You're trying to build a substantial future for them to start off really strong. And so stick to this. Don't get crazy with it. You don't want to lose all your funds because you thought that some guru on the internet said GameStop stock was going to go to the moon, and your kid's future is taken away from them. So please do not do that and stick to this basic fundamental stuff here. So the other thing we do, guys, is we decided amongst our budget, and we said, we got to this answer of $250 per month for the 529, brings us to $120,000 in the future in 18 years. We said, hey, you know what, that's pretty dang good. You know what, $120,000, although it's only 60% of projected college costs, which I think will go down, I think it's pretty dang good. So what we decided to do is match that in our parent taxable brokerage of $250. Because we figured if she had $120,000 here, $120,000 here, she's going to be all right. She's going to figure it out. And then also, any earned income that she has goes directly to the Roth IRA. And then on top of it, if we get gifts, if grandma decides to stop buying gifts at $25 that she's been giving us since 1990, I told her to give me in Bitcoin, but it's $25. It's the standard $25 for the last 30 years of my life. I love it. But if she gives Logan her classic $25, which she did this past weekend for her birthday, that goes directly into the parent taxable brokerage account. Now, she did put some stipulations on it that cash, I told her it was cash, so it didn't matter. She said that it has to be used for fun or Target, and I said, Logan doesn't know, she has to give me toys. So I went ahead and put it in the brokerage. I didn't tell Erin, so stay quiet on that, don't let her know. And I put it into her taxable brokerage account. But other than that, guys, that's our strategy. We use the $529, $250 to the parent taxable brokerage, which is our name. We can take that at any point in time if Logan decides to misbehave. And the Roth IRA is any earned income to get her started on retirement. There's also some strategies behind this from a tax standpoint that you can withdraw the first $10,000 for a first-time home and different things like that. We're not planning on using those strategies or anything like that, but you have flexibility, obviously, with an IRA like that. And then use these resources to the best of your ability, and also keep it traditional and set your kids up and automate. Please do not manually do this. In any investment that you guys do, I talk about it all the time, don't manually do any of this stuff. It's going to be a waste of your time. It's going to take a lot of time. You're going to make the wrong decisions. You're going to be emotional. Automate all of your finances, especially your kids' future. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to get some questions and flip my camera around and answer anything you guys have. All right, let's see. Hopefully you guys are still on here. Listen to me. All right, let me flip this around. All right, so let's answer some questions, guys. Anything and everything you guys got. I'm going to go to the top and just, I see one quick one. So do you open separate 529s for two kids or just one? You can do either. We haven't gotten to the point where we have two kids, but my expectation is that we'll do one. We'll do two, and we'll just keep it separate. I don't feel like you could keep it in a commingled mess if you want, and you could give some assets here eventually. Now you have to have the actual kid that you're giving those assets to as the actual holder. So if one kid goes through school or whatever and you're paying for them, but if they're really close, it's too much. I would do two. All right, so I'm going to scroll to the top, guys. Sorry for anybody that came in late and has the questions at the bottom. I promise I'll get through everything I can. Okay, let's see. All right, so a lot of people came in, and I have a lot of names pop in, but I'm trying to see the questions. I'm not trying to skip over anything if I see anything. What if you don't tell them about it? Okay, that's in reference to the UTMA. You don't have to, but what happens is they get mail or email sent to them, and it's their asset. So eventually they'll kind of pick up, like, hey, why do I keep getting this Charles Schwab invoice? Funny story is, all right, this is a very deep story. I'm going to keep it surface level. I got that. So my dad, I guess, bought some penny stock a long time ago. I didn't know about that stock, but he set up for all my brothers. It went to $1 million, not even kidding. He didn't sell, and it went back down, okay? So we had money sitting I had 30,000 shares worth about $10. So I got some mail recently, like it was probably 5 years ago, and I was like, what is this mail? Like, what's this about, this Charles Schwab stuff? I called them and they said, you have an account. They told me the stock. I remembered the story and I was like, oh, that makes sense. I asked him. He's like, yeah, it was a long time ago. I didn't think there was anything in there. And so I talked to him about it. But yeah, we had, I had like 10, 20 bucks in there of 30,000 shares, but it was a penny stock. Crazy story. But they'll get mail, so they know. Missed why you put those 5 states at the top. The 5 states, guys, are ones that don't get the state tax deduction. Let's see what else we got, guys. Number 4 all day long. Yes, Connor, I agree, man. We talked about it, obviously, on our call. Connor's one of my clients, guys. But yes, Connor is correct. Number 4, parent taxable brokerage is phenomenal. Flexibility is the best thing. Wouldn't it be better to have it in your brokerage? Sorry, Kelsey, I didn't see what that's in relation to. Maybe the 529, I don't know. The blog on Logan Lee today was informative, heartfelt, and a beautiful glimpse of your family life. This community loves Logan. I appreciate you, Natalie. You're my number one, day one there. If you guys haven't checked out the blog on Logan, my daughter, I released a really good blog. Go to my stories after this and take a second to share that blog because I'm trying to raise awareness for her condition. And for those that don't know, it's Dravet syndrome. So please take a second. I don't ask people to share a lot of stuff. Please go to my story, take that blog, share it to your community, wherever, and send it to your family or whatever. We're trying to raise awareness for a very, very rare disease that Logan has. Are they being taxed parent or kid rate? So I don't know which account you're referring to. So the UTMA, guys, the first $1,100 is at the kiddie tax rate. The second $1,100 is at the normal tax rate, the regular tax rate. And then the third is at the parent tax rate. So I don't know. I think you might mean that one or the brokerage. And the brokerage would be obviously yourself because it's in your name. Oh, yes, guys. Quick, I need to add this detail as well. This is important. So the lifetime limit on gift, though. So this is in reference to this $32,000 right here. So the $16,000 per gift per spouse times 2 is $32,000, right? So every year you're technically give 32,000. Okay, if you go over and above that number, that's technically fine. So there's a lifetime exclusion that's about 12.02 million about. You can go up into that. That comes into play with estate taxes down the road, right? So you can go to, let's say, $40,000, so $8,000 over that $32,000 limit. That $8,000 is applied to that $12 million lifetime exclusion. You may think that's not a big deal, but when you're dealing with estate planning and estate taxes down the road, it could absolutely come up if you're gifting well and above over that limit. In the given tax year, you have to fill out it's 706 or 709, I forget. Form 706 or 709. If you go over and above, it's not a big deal. You can do it. It just starts to be applied to that 12 million plus number. Trump has doubled that number, so a lot of people have fear that that will get brought back down, divided in two or whichever way they want to do it, back to kind of a more reasonable number where it could impact more people from an estate planning perspective. So make sure that if you're doing that, you're very, very well aware of that lifetime exclusion. So appreciate the comment, Connor. I should have brought that up. Okay, so just joined but need all the info. Appreciate you guys. Thank you. So is parent taxable brokerage only if you have your own business? No, guys. Parent taxable brokerage has nothing to do with me owning my business. You're able to go do that yourself. Let's see. Sorry guys, the TikTok circle light it's my thing, so I'm able to show you guys my screen, unfortunately. So it's just the time of the night, so it shines really bright. What companies do you recommend opening a brokerage account? I would do Vanguard, Charles Schwab, or Fidelity, just like a personal account, guys. I use Vanguard, so it doesn't really matter, but that's where I would start. What's the cost of a 529? There is no cost necessarily, guys. Most investment accounts nowadays, there isn't actually a cost. There might be a cost with, in particular, your expense ratios or your investments, or there might be fees within the actual account, but it doesn't cost money to typically open an investment account. You mentioned to start both account 529 and brokerage day one. What if your budget only allows for a small amount, let's say $200? Do you split between the accounts or just fund 529 and another? I would go back to this very, very first thing we talked about: goals, purpose, and then to account. So if your goal, I would value stack your goals. If it's more important that you take care of college, I would start with the 529. If you're more worried about flexibility, I would just go to the brokerage account. Love the Vanguard college calculator. Yeah, Kristen, I'm sure you're using it all the time. I hope everything's going well, Kristen. Let's see. All right, guys. Let's see. I'm scrolling through. There's a lot of people that joined, so I'm just trying to make sure I get through everything. My wife says, I forgot Grandma brought money. Yes, I know you did. It's already in the bank. Do you have to open separate 529 for 2 kids, or just, we answer that one? Is a custodial account okay for my child? It is, absolutely. But a custodial account, guys, is the UGMA. So it's a custodial account under their name. So I don't like that account, is what I was saying. Love the talks. How's Logan? Guys, Logan is doing fantastic. It's a little scary yesterday, obviously. We had our first seizure in 32 days. It's like a sport not to have a seizure on a daily basis. So 32 days is a long time. But yesterday morning, unfortunately, we broke that streak and we had one. But she's been great since then, honestly. And then obviously today she was pretty good. But thank you guys for asking. Missed the first 30. Will there be a place to watch? Yes, guys. Make sure, guys, every single Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to do a Whiteboard Wednesday lesson on a particular topic. Tonight's obviously child investing. I've done them on HSAs and other topics before, but 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. These will be saved on my Reels. If you go to my profile and hit not post, but Reels, you'll see them there. And I'm going to upload them to my YouTube as well. Instead of a parent taxable brokerage, wouldn't it be better just keeping a brokerage so it can compound more? Kelsey, it wouldn't matter. The parent or the kid custodial, it really wouldn't change the fact. The only difference is the way you're taxed, essentially. So it's basically you're saying is the UGMA, which is a regular custodial brokerage, or the parent taxable brokerage. Vanguard doesn't have fees for buying Vanguard ETFs. Yes, they do. They have very slight fees. They're not large. We're talking 3 basis points, but they have slight fees. I have 2 kids and I opened a TD UGMA for them. Should I stop putting money towards it or transfer it? So you guys, you can't transfer it. That's the big thing. If you put money into these accounts, it's their money. And so that's why it becomes such an issue, is because things change, life changes, and that's not your money. And so if things change within the relationship of the family and you're like, hey, I'm not going to support my 18-year-old kid that went down the wrong path, it's their money. So you can't transfer it. You could stop contributing to it, and I highly recommend personally to do that. But everyone's situation is different. So I just don't see a benefit, guys, in using the UTMA versus the brokerage account. Nobody can really give me a legitimate reason to do that. I mean, even the one person I know on social media that uses the UTMA and very, very fond of it, or very confident in it, doesn't really have a good reason why the parent taxable brokerage isn't better. It's more so that they started with this and they just feel more comfortable. So that's kind of what their reasoning. Totally fine. But from the 20% issue and financial aid and stuff, it doesn't make sense. These are so helpful. Thank you. Appreciate you, Mama Baker. All right, guys. So I think here's one more question. So the parent taxable brokerage is me calling up Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab and say, I want a brokerage account, but it's for my kid. No, guys, it's literally kind of yes. Just go onto Vanguard's website and just open a taxable brokerage account in your name. But what you want to do, instead of, you just put your name in it or whatever, and you set up automatic contributions, but you earmark it. You say, hey, this taxable brokerage account is for my children. Even though it says my name, I have to understand that the money I set up, the automatic contribution of $250, is for that kid in particular. And so if you have another kid, you might want to open a third brokerage, your own, kid number 1, kid number 2, for 3 combined total. But you'll earmark each one and know which one's for which kid. What happens if you make these accounts for future children, but then they never have kids, or what happens? So that's a good question. So guys, if you want to go through each one of these real quick. So let's just say you start this account and you don't have a kid. That's why I wouldn't be doing this unless you're like pretty certain that you have a kid in the future and you just want to start. Like that's the goal is, hey, we're planning on having kids within the next year or 2. We're married. Like that's the next goal. Barring catastrophic type deal, like we're going to have kids. If you're not to that point, I probably wouldn't start. Like I wouldn't be, if you're a 23-year-old kid getting started and you have no girlfriend or no boyfriend or no specific spouse, and you're not looking to marry and have kids at this point in time, I would not start this. So if you started a 529 in your name and you never had a kid, you could technically pull at a 10%, the 10% penalty. But I don't, the last one I would do for the 529, unless you're like really certain, I wouldn't do the 529. The UTMA, you need a social security number, so you can't do that. The IRA, you need obviously social security number. The rental property and the parent taxable brokerage, you can technically have those. So the brokerage account, what I would do is keep it in your name. So it's your money. And so it doesn't matter if you have kids or not. So that won't matter. And then the rental property, if you want to go the alternative strategy and keep it like a 20 years, you still have a rental property. So it's still a good benefit and asset to you long term, but it's up to you at that point in time. So the only one that could really bite you is the 529. If in fact you started this way too early and you don't have kids, you could use it for your education for different things. But like if you don't go back to school, it would technically be lost money. Can I open this for my grandkids? Yes, you can. That's a great idea, Joan. I highly recommend, actually. That would be a great benefit from a grandma or grandpa to cover them with some of their 529 money. So I think their parents would respect that too. All right, guys. This was a good conversation. We're going to do next week as well. Please send me the topics that you want me to cover. So please send me a DM. If you guys want a specific topic covered, my goal is to craft these presentations to you guys, whiteboard style, every single Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, on topics that help you guys. They don't help me. I'm here to help you guys cover specific topics. We've done HSA, We've done taxable buckets at this point in time, or tax strategy. We've done some other things as well, and now we've done child investing. There's a few other things I have in mind, but I get the ideas from you guys, and I put something together for you, and I'll be here at 8 p.m. next Wednesday. So appreciate everybody. Thank you for tuning in. This will be saved.